She said it so softly I almost thought I imagined it. You make distance feel cruel, and silence feel loud. The words weren't a confession, more like a quiet surrender she hadn't meant to say aloud. And once she did, the air between us changed. It began in the after-hours hum of an empty office. The building had gone quiet, only the faint sound of rain brushing the windows and the low hum of the vending machine behind me. I was supposed to leave an hour ago. She was still working, or pretending to. Her name was Elise. Mid-40s, deliberate in every movement. There was a kind of calm around her that made everything else, the flickering lights, the tapping rain, seem less restless. I'd known her for 6 months, maybe 7, but tonight felt different. Maybe it was the silence, or the way her sleeve brushed mine when she leaned over my desk to hand me a file she could have easily emailed. Her perfume wasn't sweet. It was subtle, like old paper and cedar, something that stayed in the air just long enough to be missed when it was gone. Still here? She asked, her voice low, slightly hoarse from the long day. I nodded, pretending to finish an email. Couldn't leave before you did. She smiled, a quiet, almost private kind of smile, and looked down at the document in her hands as if it suddenly required all her attention. The space between us wasn't large, but it felt measured. She always kept that distance, enough to be professional, safe, appropriate. And yet she didn't step back when I did. When our eyes met, it wasn't romantic. Not yet. It was something smaller, recognition maybe. The kind that makes you feel like you've been seen too clearly. Do you ever get tired of being careful? I asked before I could stop myself. Her hand froze halfway through gathering her papers. Then she looked at me, really looked, the way people do when they've forgotten to keep their guard up. Careful? She repeated, a faint tremor in her tone. You say that like it's a choice. She turned slightly, leaning against the edge of my desk. The light from the desk lamp caught the line of her jaw, the faint tiredness in her eyes. I could have said something to break it, a joke, anything, but the silence felt too fragile to touch. So I didn't. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, then sighed, almost to herself. You're too young to understand what distance is for. Maybe, I said quietly. Or maybe I just don't like how it feels with you. Her breath caught, just slightly, before she smiled again, softer this time, almost wistful. You shouldn't say things like that, she murmured. I know. But I didn't take it back. For a while, neither of us moved. The office light flickered, and the rain thickened against the glass. She glanced toward the door, then back at me, and in that second, that tiny hesitation, the air between us was almost unbearable. She reached for her bag, fingers brushing mine by accident, or maybe not. Her hand lingered just long enough for me to feel the warmth of her skin. Then she said it, quiet, almost trembling with restraint. You make distance feel cruel, and silence feel loud. Before I could answer, the hallway light snapped on, a shadow moving just outside the door. She pulled her hand back. I stepped away. The moment collapsed, and the only sound left was the rain. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. No mention of what she'd said, no flicker of acknowledgement when our eyes met in the hallway. She was the same Elise, efficient, composed, untouchable. But something in the way she avoided my gaze told me she remembered every word. I did too. That night had replayed in my head like a half-finished song, the warmth of her hand, the tremor in her voice, the soft defiance of her confession. It wasn't love. Not yet. It was gravity, quiet, steady, impossible to reason with. We worked late again 2 days later. It was supposed to be routine, just a report she wanted proofread before the quarterly meeting. But she was already there when I walked in, sleeves rolled up, hair slightly undone from the rain outside. Coffee? I asked, setting my cup near her. She glanced up. You always make it too sweet. I figured you could use something different tonight. Her lips curved, not quite a smile, but something close. Different isn't always safe, she murmured, then reached for the cup anyway. The rain outside had slowed to a drizzle, and the office felt softer somehow. Less like a place of work, more like a room suspended between rules and something neither of us could name. I watched her review the pages, pen tapping against the table in a rhythm that filled the silence. She was close enough for me to smell the faint citrus of her shampoo, close enough that I could feel her breath when she sighed. And still, she kept that invisible wall, a small, deliberate gap between us that said don't. Do you ever miss it? I asked suddenly. She looked up. Miss what? Being with someone. Her pen stopped. A tiny pause, heavier than any answer. After a moment, she said, Miss it? No. Remember it? Sometimes. Her voice was calm, but her hands gave her away. She twisted her ring finger, bare, but as if something used to be there. I was married once, she said finally. It ended quietly. Like most things do when you stop noticing. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. She turned the question back to me. And you? You can't have many regrets yet. Maybe not, I said. But I think I understand loneliness. Her eyes softened, not with pity, but with something deeper, almost recognition. Then she reached to take the paper from me, her fingers grazing my wrist. The touch was brief, but it felt intentional. Her thumb hesitated, a small, human mistake, before she pulled away. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was alive. People talk, she said after a while. If they see us like this, they'll make it something it isn't. I leaned back in my chair. And what if they're right? She looked at me for a long time. The lamplight caught the edge of her cheekbone, the faint weariness beneath her eyes. Then, in a voice so soft it barely reached me, she said, Then we'd both have to learn how to stop. But neither of us moved. Her hand rested on the table, inches from mine, still, waiting, trembling slightly. And for the first time, either of us looked away. It started with the smallest sound, a phone vibrating against the desk. Hers. We both looked at it at the same time. A name flashed across the screen, Daniel. I didn't know who that was, and I didn't ask. But the flicker of guilt in her eyes said enough. She let it ring once more, then turned it face down. Just a friend, she said quietly. It sounded like an apology. We were alone again, but the moment had cracked something open. The air between us wasn't calm anymore. It buzzed, restless, full of words either of us should say. Does he know you're still here? I asked before I could stop myself. Her lips parted, then closed again. He doesn't need to. Her tone was even, but her fingers tightened around her pen until the plastic creaked. I don't mean to. Yes, you do. She said it softly, but it cut through the quiet like glass. I exhaled, looking away. Then why do you let me stay? That question hung in the air, too bold, too raw. She didn't answer. Instead, she stood, gathering the files that didn't really need organizing. Her movements were too precise, the kind people make when they're trying not to feel something. When she turned, I was closer than before. Not on purpose. Or maybe it was. The light above her desk flickered, and for a second her face softened, all the restraint, the careful distance, gone. Just her, tired and beautiful and trying too hard not to tremble. You shouldn't look at me like that, she whispered. Like what? Like you want to understand what I don't say. Her words landed somewhere between warning and confession. I didn't move, but she did, a slow step closer until the edge of her sleeve brushed my hand. I could feel the warmth of her skin even through the fabric. Then she leaned forward slightly, just enough for her breath to reach my cheek. You make this difficult, she murmured. I could stop coming by so late, I said, even though we both knew I wouldn't. She smiled, small, helpless. No, you won't. The silence was unbearable, all breathing and heartbeats, and the rain starting again outside. Her hand lifted as if to touch my face, but she froze midway. For a heartbeat, we were suspended in something fragile, so close I could see the faint tremor in her lashes, the hesitation just before she pulled back. Then, Miss Carter? The door opened. We jumped apart. One of the interns stood there, eyes flicking between us, confusion tightening his expression. She was the first to speak. Calm. Controlled. Yes, Adam? He stammered something about a misplaced file. She handled it effortlessly, that perfect composure sliding back into place. But when he left, and the door clicked shut again, she exhaled shakily. I told you people talk, she said. I don't care. She looked at me then, really looked. The air between us pulsed with everything we'd both tried to bury. Her voice was almost a whisper. You will. And yet, she didn't move away. Her hand brushed my arm, once slow, deliberate, and stayed there longer than it should have. Neither of us said a word. The rain had turned into a storm by the time we left the office. Thunder rolled above the parking lot, and the world felt smaller, shadows under flickering lights, the smell of wet asphalt rising between us. Her umbrella had snapped in the wind. I offered mine. She hesitated, then stepped under it beside me. The space was barely enough for two. Our shoulders brushed as we walked, every accidental touch sharp, electric. When we reached her car, she stopped but didn't unlock it right away. The rain drummed harder on the umbrella. Neither of us spoke. Thank you, she said finally, her voice quiet, uneven. You shouldn't always wait for me. I swallowed, the words stuck somewhere between honesty and restraint. Maybe I like waiting. Her eyes met mine, uncertain. You don't know what that means yet. I think I do. The thunder cracked again, closer this time. She flinched slightly, then laughed at herself, soft, embarrassed. I reached out before thinking, brushing the damp strands of hair from her face. She didn't move. My hand hovered, then found her cheek, cold from the rain, warm beneath. You shouldn't, she whispered, but her voice trembled. Tell me to stop, I said. She didn't. For a moment, it was just the sound of the storm and her breath catching in time with mine. Her hand lifted, resting against my chest, a gentle push that never became one. You're making a mistake, she murmured. So are you. The corner of her mouth curved, not quite a smile, not yet surrender. God, you don't understand how easy it would be. Then don't make it easy, I said. Just tell me this isn't what you want. Her silence was the only answer I needed. The wind caught the umbrella, snapping it sideways. We both stumbled under the awning, breathless and half-soaked. She laughed again, that rare, unguarded sound that made something inside me ache. See? She said, shaking her head. We're ridiculous. I stepped closer, close enough to see the tiny raindrops clinging to her eyelashes. Maybe. Her back brushed the wall. The air was heavy with rain and something else, a pulse, a pull. Her fingers brushed mine, then tightened, not by accident. Do you ever think about what people would say? She asked, her voice barely a breath. Every day, I said. And I still end up here. She exhaled slowly, her lips parting as if to answer, but nothing came out. I could feel her heartbeat through her fingertips. Say something, I whispered. I can't. The distance between us vanished, a breath, an inch, nothing. Her hand slid up my chest to my collar, fingers curling just slightly in the fabric. For a heartbeat, I thought she'd closed the space between us. Then, headlights cut across the parking lot. She froze. The moment shattered. Her hand slipped away, leaving behind the warmth of something that had almost happened. Get in, she said softly, unlocking the car with trembling fingers. I didn't move. Elise, I said low. You can't keep pretending this isn't real. She looked at me, eyes wide, voice breaking. Then don't make me choose tonight. The next day, she didn't come in. Her desk stayed empty, her mug half full, her reading glasses still folded on a file she hadn't finished. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe she took a day off, maybe the storm had flooded the roads. But the quiet absence of her perfume, the missing hum of her soft "good morning," pressed on me all day like a weight. When she finally appeared the next afternoon, everything about her was different. She looked like someone who'd been awake all night. Her hair pulled back carelessly, her voice subdued. Elise? I asked too carefully. She didn't look up. We need to talk. The words chilled me before I even knew why. We ended up in the copy room, the one place no one ever stayed long enough to listen. She closed the door behind us, slow, deliberate. Her eyes wouldn't meet mine. Someone saw us, she said finally. Outside. Last night. I blinked. Who? She hesitated then. Daniel. The name from her phone. The one she'd silenced. She continued, voice breaking in quiet fragments. He's not just a friend. He's my ex-husband. We still handle some things together. And he was here late, picking up some documents. He saw us. The room felt smaller suddenly, the air dense with unspoken things. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry. What did he say? That it figures. She laughed softly, bitterly. That I'd finally found someone to ruin me properly. Her shoulders trembled, but she kept her expression steady. He thinks you're just a phase, she said, voice trembling. That you'll get bored once you realize I'm not the woman you've built in your head. That's not fair. Isn't it? She whispered. You don't know half the things I've had to hide just to keep people from talking. She turned away, bracing herself against the counter, her reflection ghosted in the copier glass. The machine hummed quietly, its low vibration filling the silence either of us could bear. I stepped closer slowly, until I was standing behind her. My voice was quiet when I spoke. Then let them talk. She laughed once, sharp and wet. You say that now. But when your career starts slipping, when people start whispering. She stopped, realizing how close I'd gotten. I could see the faint pulse in her neck, the way her breath caught as I brushed my hand near her arm, not touching, not quite. Elise, I said, and this time her name felt like a plea. Her eyes flicked up to mine in the copier's reflection, fear, longing, guilt, all tangled together. I shouldn't have let this start, she said. You didn't, I whispered. I did. Her lips parted, a tremor of air escaping, half a sigh, half a surrender. Then, suddenly, her phone buzzed again on the table. Daniel. She flinched as if burned, stepping back from me. Her hand pressed to her chest as she whispered, If he tells anyone, it's over for both of us. I stared at her, the woman who had made distance feel cruel, and realized the truth. The danger wasn't him. It was us. The silence between us had stopped being safe a long time ago. She reached for the door, paused, then looked back at me one last time. Tonight, she said, voice low. We end this, or we don't. And then she was gone. She asked me to meet her after hours. No text, no reason, just my name on a folded note left on my desk. Conference room 3B. 9 o'clock. By the time I got there, the building was almost silent. Only the soft hum of the air conditioner, and the faint sound of rain, again, like the world kept replaying the same scene, waiting for a different ending. She was already there, standing by the window. The city lights painted gold across her face. Elise, I said. She didn't turn around. I shouldn't have asked you to come. You did. A pause. Then, I know. She turned finally, eyes tired but steady. You understand what happens if we don't stop this. Do you? I asked quietly. Her breath caught, her hand tightening around the edge of the desk. You think this is easy for me? That I don't. She stopped herself, jaw tightening. Say it, I whispered. But she didn't. Instead, she took a step closer. Then another. Until the distance between us was measured in breaths. Her perfume lingered faintly, that same cedar and paper scent that had haunted me for weeks. I felt her hesitation like static, her fingers twitching as if to reach for me, then retreating. You're too young to understand the cost, she said. Then teach me, I murmured. Her eyes flickered, a tiny, involuntary tremor. Something cracked in her restraint. She exhaled, trembling slightly. You make everything feel louder than it should. And you make silence impossible, I said. She laughed then, not out of humor, but exhaustion. Do you have any idea what it's like to want something you know you'll lose? Yes, I said. You. That broke her. Not in the dramatic way, no tears, no collapse, just a small sound leaving her throat as she stepped into me, close enough that her breath touched my skin. Her hand lifted, fingers brushing the side of my neck. It wasn't a kiss. Not yet. It was something deeper, a pause that held both surrender and resistance. I can't do this, she whispered, voice trembling. You already are. Her eyes closed, her forehead resting lightly against mine. The air between us was unbearable, heavy, electric, alive. We stayed like that, caught between decision and consequence. Then she spoke, barely audible. I told him I didn't love him anymore, she said. And for the first time, I think it was true. Her words hit harder than any confession. I felt her tears before I saw them, warm against my skin, hidden by the dim light. I brushed a strand of hair from her face, my thumb lingering at her jaw. What do we do now? I asked. She looked up, eyes raw, unguarded. We stop pretending, she whispered. She leaned in, not to kiss me, but to rest her lips against my cheek, like a promise and a warning all at once. When she pulled back, her voice was calm, certain. Whatever happens after this, we'll know it was real. And for the first time, silence didn't feel cruel anymore. It felt complete. It had been a week since that night. A week of polite distance, practiced smiles, and quiet avoidance. The office returned to normal, or at least it looked that way. But underneath the ordinary routine, something had shifted. I could still feel the echo of her voice. We stopped pretending. It wasn't a declaration, it was a choice. That Friday, I found her on the rooftop terrace, her usual refuge when she wanted to be alone. The sunset was low and red, stretching against the skyline. She was leaning against the railing, hair loose this time, her coffee cooling beside her. When she heard my footsteps, she didn't turn around. I thought you'd stopped waiting for me, she said softly. I tried. She glanced over her shoulder, smiling faintly. You're not very good at pretending, are you? No, I admitted. You ruined that for me. She laughed quietly, not her usual guarded one, but a tired, real sound. I spent most of my life pretending I was fine with being alone. It was easier than wanting something I wasn't supposed to have. I stepped closer, careful but certain. And now? She looked at me, really looked, the evening light catching the small lines near her eyes, the kind you only get from living, from feeling too much. No, she said. I'm just tired of worrying about what's proper. Her words hung between us, simple and weightless, yet they cracked something wide open. The wind was gentle, carrying the smell of rain from the street below. I reached out, slowly, giving her time, and she didn't pull away. My hand found hers, warm, steady, familiar. Her fingers tightened around mine, and she exhaled, a sound that felt like release. You know this won't be easy, she said. Good things never are, I answered. Her eyes softened. You shouldn't have to teach me how to be brave. Maybe I'm just reminding you, I said, that it's still allowed. We stood there for a long time, no words, no distance left to guard. She leaned into me eventually, her head resting lightly against my shoulder. The city noise faded beneath the quiet rhythm of our breathing. Her hand traced small circles on my palm, absent-minded and human. After a while, she whispered, You make me feel like I still have time. I smiled, pressing a gentle kiss against her forehead. You do. The world below us kept moving, cars, voices, the faint echo of a life still waiting to be lived, but for that moment, it didn't matter. We had already decided. Not to hide, not to rush, just to be. And in the warmth of that choice, distance finally stopped being cruel. Silence finally stopped being loud. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?